You may not know it, but a number of states have enacted legislation to filter or block harmful materials on public school computers. In some schools, full websites are blocked. In others, search terms or maybe search engines. According to USA Today, New York City's Department of Education blocked Google Images last month for what it called objectionable content, but later left it up to schools whether to allow it. So joining me now via Skype to discuss all this from New York, Jennifer Koppelman-Hutt, a lawyer who you can catch on Sirius XM. From Sacramento, Pedro Noguero, a professor of education at New York University. And on the phone, the president of Enough is Enough, Donna Rice Hughes from Charleston, South Carolina. Jennifer, let me start with you. Should anything on the web be censored at a public school, do you think?
Yeah, I don't like any sort of censorship of that kind. I think when you start to put software on the computer that blocks groups of sites or quote-unquote objectionable content, then very necessary content also tends to get blocked. And I also think that kids can find their way around blocked content using other words and figuring it out, and then that becomes a time waster that they could be using that time to learn instead of trying to get to where they want to go on the internet.
Pedro, what do you think about the censorship of these online sites at school?
Well, I actually agree, Randy. I think that censorship is extremely difficult. Kids are much more advanced about how to navigate the internet than most of the adults are, and they will find ways around it. I think if there are reasonable ways to control access to dangerous sites, then we should try to employ them. But I think censorship is a slippery slope. And once we start down that path, then we end up really infringing on the rights of our children. We should want them to have full access to information, but also to use that information responsibly. And that's where I'd place the emphasis, is how to ensure that they are responsible in their use of the internet and the information that they're seeking.
Donna, do you see this as censorship?
No, I don't see it as censorship. Censorship is prior restraint by the government. And this law, the Children's Internet Protection Act, which we were very involved with, was an attempt to actually have schools be able to effectively manage children's internet access and to be able to filter out pornography. And that's what this entire law is about. And your other two guests did say something, though, that I do agree with, and that is kids can get around many of these filters, which is why it's so important that I also think that schools should consider using monitoring technology additionally. But schools certainly have the right to manage their the internet access, and how they choose to manage it really is up to them. But the key thing is, from what I understand, that this whole matter in New York was about, is completely blocking off entire websites like social media sites such as Facebook and YouTube. And now there's some great tools that will allow schools and even parents to better manage that access so that the kids can enjoy these other types of tools, if you will, and avoid the pitfall.
I mean, in Pinellas County, Florida, according to USA Today, the teachers aren't even allowed to communicate with their students anymore online via Facebook or anything like that. But the internet really, I mean, it is not going away. So Jennifer, I mean, who should draw the line here? Should this be a local issue, a schools issue, a state issue, a federal issue? What do you think?
Right. I think a school issue is a better idea than taking it bigger. But I would hope that the schools would make the right decision and not block any access, really, and maybe have some teachers monitoring the kids' behaviors while they're online, maybe in the library. And in terms of the whole Facebook thing, that's ridiculous. You got to let the kids communicate with the teachers any which way that they ultimately want to do. That's the way it is now and the way of the future. And nobody should be doing inappropriate anything on Facebook or Twitter or wherever anyway. So if there's no inappropriate behavior, there's going to be no problem.
Pedro, what is the message here to these kids, to these students?
The message is that the adults are afraid of technology they don't understand, and they need to, I agree with the last speaker, they need to adapt with the times. You know, we have kids bringing smartphones to schools, and schools telling the children they will take them away, rather than figuring out how to use those smartphones as a device for learning. Technology can enhance learning, and what we need to do is to make sure that the adults are as comfortable and as well trained as the children are, so that they know how to use those to support learning and to facilitate learning. Trying to limit kids' access is a losing battle, and I think it's not one that's consistent with our goals of having kids become more engaged in learning.
Donna, shouldn't the education really about this start at home?
Education should absolutely start at home, and enough is enough. We are actually, our whole mission is to make sure that kids are safe on the internet and are using it safely, and parents are certainly the first line of defense. And in fact, we developed an entire curriculum to educate parents as well as educators so that they can understand the dangers and then be better equipped to manage that child's internet access so that they can use it safely and effectively, whether it's at school or at home, because the internet, everybody's right, it's here to stay. It's a fantastic tool, but there are some real dangers. And I do think that this should be a local issue, a school issue. They have every right to choose how they want to manage the issue, and I just hope that they don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and that's the real key thing here that I think we're talking about.
Donna, Pedro, Jennifer, appreciate your time today. Very interesting discussion. Thanks again.